And welcome back to Astro Self Care Sunday. It is Kenya. We are back. If you are new here, welcome to the space. We have a very fun series we're doing. And clearly, y'all are enjoying it too because we had, I pay attention, to our how many likes we get and views. Now, listen, it's not, we're growing this page. Okay. We're growing this. It's not a whole bunch, but it is growing. It is growing, and we keep nearing our 1,000. And so, if you're new here, please make sure you push subscribe. Make sure you click the bell so that you're notified when these videos are dropped or any other videos that I do here on this channel. Make sure you like the video, particularly if it really resonated for you. Even if you maybe didn't fully love it as much as you liked last time, you can still like it. It's not hard. That's how we get in other people's algorithm. And then, of course, if you have constructive and helpful comments, share that. Okay. So we're doing a series. We're going through the houses, paying attention to the north and the south nodes. And this was by request because the north node is suggestive of what the soul really came here, how the soul came here to grow, what lessons the soul really wants to have in this lifetime. You may see it as the soul's purpose or the soul's calling. It's a very significant placement, your north node. Okay. And the south node, which is always just opposite of the north node, is suggestive of what you've already mastered in previous or past lifetimes. That in this lifetime, the soul is attempting to get you to begin to shed and unlearn and release, whatever that is. The thing is, though, because you have mastered it in previous lifetimes, we tend to want to keep holding tight to whatever energetically and karmically is happening in the south node. But that's what we're being asked to let go of. So it's a little bit of an inverse. It's a little bit of an opposite effect. And so anything that's feeling a bit more challenging to step into is typically, the astrology loves the hardship. It wants the challenge because the challenge is the resistance and it's how it teaches you the lessons and the growth and all the things. And so a lot of times our north node, wherever it is in our chart, is harder to access and can at times, depending on where you at developing yourself, you may not even believe that you're really supposed to be doing those things or having those lessons, but you are. And so, in this series, last week we started off. The North and the South always sit directly across from each other in your birth chart. I would suggest if you're new here and you follow astrology though a bit and you know your chart a little bit, pull out your chart, pull out your chart. If you're new here, you want to learn more about astrology, you do not know how to pull up your chart, I suggest that you go to either astro.com or go to chart.channynicholas.com or to the app Time Passages. And there's many other websites where you can pull your chart for free. All of those are my favorite. Those three are my favorite. And you just need to definitely make sure particularly for this, when we're going through the houses, you have to know your time of birth to pull up a correct chart. Okay. The other thing is, before I get into the second and the eighth house, which is what we're going to talk about today with the nodes, I decided finally, yes, to scroll, not the title of what I'm talking about, because you can see the title on YouTube right there. But so how you can know how to book a reading with me. Okay. So if this is resonating for you, I have done readings for people all across the country, even internationally. I have done readings. So if you go to the link that's being scrolled there, okay, you see it in the capital letters. It looks almost like it's saying link tree, but what it's saying is linktr.ee/Kenya MJ Music. So this channel is Kenya MJ Music. You should be able to remember that. And then you're doing linktr.ee. Okay. So linktr.ee/Kenya MJ Music. You will see where you can book a full reading, where you can subscribe to my newsletter, I now do what's called Astro. This summer, I'm doing an Astro Friday happy hour series. So what that means is you get me at a really discounted rate because it's happy hours. All right. It's happy hours. So you're basically getting really, I mean, yeah, you're paying a lot less. It's just $1 a minute up to 30 minutes. And if you only do 20 minutes, then you pay $20. If you're doing the full 30, you do 30. If you want to throw in a tip, you can. It's up to you. Okay. And so that's on select. That's not every Friday, but that's on select Friday. So if you go to this link tr.ee/Kenya MJ Music, I also do retreats. I'm going to be announcing a very special day astrology retreat on rituals to do around all this we're talking about. That's going to be in Chicago in July. So I'll be giving more. I think save the date as July 20th. It's a Saturday. But yeah, that if you bookmark that website, linktr.ee/Kenya MJ Music, I always update that and you'll always know all the different services being offered. Okay. All right. So last week we talked about the North and the South node in the first and the seventh house and what that meant. This week, we're going into the North and the South node in the second and eighth houses. Okay. So, just as a reminder, when we're looking at this and we're going through the houses, we want to first understand what those houses are about. In order to learn more about those houses, I did a whole series going over every house in the birth chart. There's a total of 12 houses, and I went through each one of them. So if you go on the playlist, you can catch up and you can dig a little bit more into what the second house is all about and what the eighth house is all about. But just for reference for this, second house is ruled by Venus and is ruled by Taurus, okay, naturally. Now, you may have another sign sitting up there on your second house. I just want to tell you what it's ruled by so you understand the energy, the what of that house, okay, what the house is about. So the house is really about values. It's about worth. You also will hear about finances and resources. Okay. Again, Taurus is that earth energy, that grounding. We want our worth and our values and our money and how we earn our money and our financial security. We want that to be nice and secure. Okay. And our resources to be, our literal resources to be secure, and the assets of who we are to be secure. Okay. That's what the second house is about. A bit opposite or sister to that, across from that, is the eighth house. Okay. And the eighth house is ruled by Pluto, as well as it's a co-rulership because eighth house is ruled by Scorpio and Scorpio is co-ruled by Mars and Pluto. So a very different kind of energy. Okay. And so with Scorpio, Mars, Pluto energy, that's more about our resources in terms of our mental health resources, our ancestral resources, our shared resources, and how our ability to get deeper, our ability to have transformation, transformative experiences by way of having those shared resources. Okay. So they're both dealing with kind of these values, beliefs, and resources. But the second house is a little bit more about the more tangible, whereas the eighth house is deeper. And it's more interested in our ability to work in cooperation and within shared resources as opposed to individual kind of ways. Okay. So I have my notes. Make sure I pull them up because I want to make sure I'm talking right. As we talk about this, I want to talk about focus, kind of what the focus of the soul is doing if you have placements, if you have either node in the second or the eighth house, the challenges that you may be experiencing, and really the growth that's trying to happen. So let's just talk about the north node, okay? And so if the north node is sitting in the second house, all right, if it's sitting in the second house, that means your south node is sitting over there in the eighth house. And so in this current lifetime with a north node, whatever sign, don't worry about the sign right now. We're just looking at the north node and the second house. Okay. The sign is just saying how you're going to go about kind of doing this focus, how this kind of the personality of that north node. But what I want us to focus on is what really is the focus, challenge, and the growth. With the north node in the second house, the focus is really all about you are here. The soul is really wanting to develop your personal values and your financial stability and your self-worth. So when we think of financial stability, personal values, developing those things, that's how we're going to have a really clear sense of our self-worth. So if we have a North Node there, that may be hard for us. We may be depending a bit too much on others' resources or getting too much involved in emotional entanglements. Okay. Because again, South Node is where we're going to be a little bit more comfortable. And that's what's happening over there. Where the North Node, we're trying to get over there. So if you have your North Node in the second house, you may be having some challenges with having some codependence or feeling too dependent or reliant on other people's financial situations and not your own. And you want to, it's not that you don't want to, because that's what the soul is really trying to do. It's really working on developing that. But it's going to be easier for you to be a little bit more reliant on the other resources and be a little bit more in your feelings about that. And maybe having more emotional entanglements, more challenges in the emotional spaces with that as it relates to self worth and financial stability and personal values. And so, really the big lesson with a North Node in the second house and a South Node in the eighth house, the big thing that the lesson, the thing your soul is trying to push and what you're here really growing and a big theme of your growth is building self-sufficiency and valuing what you have. Okay. Valuing what you have. And so not trying to get too caught up in how other people are going to provide what you have. And that may be a bit of a tendency. Now, obviously, this can all vary a little bit. You take what resonates and what doesn't resonate, let it go. Okay. But that's typically what's happening with a North Node in the second house and a South Node in the eighth house. Now, let's switch that around. What's happening if the North Node is in the eighth house and the South Node is in the second house? Now, this is a placement that I have looked a little bit deeper into because one of my children has this placement of having his North Node in the eighth and South Node in the second. I tell people this is why I really encourage you to get a reading done. One, and I literally, I'm recording this on a Friday, so I just did happy hour, my Astro Friday happy hours, the first week of it, and it went really well. Um, but I had a client who wanted to see a little bit more about a new romantic interest, and so we were kind of comparing and looking at kind of how their chart related to the other person's chart and all of that. So this becomes really helpful when you get the permission of the other person. I wouldn't say just be like trying to sneak and find everybody's charts and know all this, but I think it's very helpful when you're in relationship with people, whether it is a romantic sense or if it's your children or your parents or what have you, because it really does allow for way more acceptance and ultimately that's going to be flow. So one of my children has this placement of having the North Node in the eighth house and then the South Node in the second house. So I'm a little familiar. So we're kind of like doing a bit of the reverse of what I just said. All right. So now this time, the focus of the soul when the North Node is in the eighth house is for you to have transformative experiences. Okay. And for you to be willing to get more in alignment with shared resources and to have more deeply deep connections emotionally. Because remember, the eighth house does a lot. It is Scorpio, so it's water, which is emotions, and it's fixed water, so that means it's deep emotions. It's also ruled by Pluto, which is all about transformation. So whatever experiences that are happening in that area, it's for them to be transformational, for you to really see another part of yourself and to be in collaboration with others. The challenge for those who have the North Node in the eighth house is being willing to let go of those more superficial things. Okay, those more superficial values, those more materialistic things. Because remember, the second house is about the tangible. It's about the I have. It's that Taurus resource energy. Scorpio, which is opposite of Taurus, is wanting us to learn more about our mental resources, our emotional resources, our our connections, the experiences that are going to allow us to have this transformation, not just the things. Okay. And so the lessons where it's trying to push you to grow when you have your North Node in the eighth house is to embrace change. Okay. Embrace change. And as you embrace change, really explore the depths of your psyche as a result of that. Okay. It's wanting you to go deeper, period. North Node in the eighth house, go deep. And depending on how certain other planets are aspecting, meaning if you have squares, or if you have trines, or if you have conjunctions, sextiles, what have you, there will be a more harmonious way in which you will do that, or it will be a more challenging way in which it'll go through more hardship of doing that. So this is why the other part of having a guidance reading done, or those of you who have had an astrology guidance reading with me to come back, a lot of times, this takes time because of the way that I do my readings. I don't like to just spit out a bunch of things to you and then you go off on your own and you don't remember anything I talked about, but it was good in the moment, which is what typically happens. I want you to be able to hear it, digest it, and then process it. And then we do like a follow-up session, or you join one of my memberships where technically we can meet up every once a month and really dig into this, because astrology is a study and it requires repetition and requires practice. This is part of the reason why I do this on YouTube. I do it I do it for a variety of reasons. I do it for the obvious, right? This is what I do. This is a part of my business. And obviously, I want to invite those who are interested and curious to be able to get more of my services, because I love doing this work, right? The other part of it, though, is every time I speak it to you or I do a reading with someone else, I'm learning it again and again and again and again. That redundancy is super important. And that helps with my skill set. That helps with me being able to learn this and be more fluent in it and be as literate as possible, and to be able to digest and be able to teach it and be able to be a guide. Okay. And that's ultimately my goal, is to really, excel in that, to be able to do that. So I encourage you to get your readings done, because I can say this and it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But you want to really know how your whole chart is working together, because nothing is happening in just a vacuum. All the other things are happening together to bring together this journey called life for you. And so with your North Node, with your South Node, other planets are in certain positions, right? Around it, either far from it, very close to it. So if it's within 90 degrees, it's considered a square. And what a square means in astrology means you are really pushing harder to understand this. The lessons can come in a more empowered state. What's beautiful about a square in an empowered state is that you will really be working hard to achieve it and to understand it and to take time with it. In a disempowered, meaning when we're kind of oblivious, we're not reflecting, we're not doing the personal work, we're just letting life happen to us, that's when it can be through hardship. That's when it can be like really, really uncomfortable. So those of you who follow astrology and you get, it's a square, because you see some astrologer saying, it's a square, or it's an opposition, or what, it doesn't have to mean, doom at all. In fact, what astrology is saying, as long as we are actually taking a moment to sit with ourselves, getting still, getting guidance, being reflective, taking a beat, it's always working on our favor. It's always working on us. Now, we're humans. We're going to have stuff happen and we're going to get tired and we're not going to want to be deep and whatever. And so then a square becomes to wake us up, to get us back on track, to get us to start flexing that muscle again, right? And my theory, and I think a lot of others is if you have more squares, or you have more oppositions in your chart, or you have more of these things that can be considered as more challenging, It's usually, to me, because the soul has been here a few times and it's really pushing to evolve on a much deeper and meaningful and valuable way. And so it will place that. So it's important. Again, that's just kind of my pause, and we're going to wrap up soon. But that's just really important to me, why I want to convey to you. If it's not me, obviously I would love to do, a reading with whomever this is really connecting with. But you want to be able to better understand your chart. And I just think this is going to be really critical, guys. We're watching the presidential debates. There were those of you who did decide to watch it, or you're following the different things, all this external world stuff, and you're probably freaking out, right? Freaking out because, one, it's made to freak you out, okay? Two, because we're going through a purge, so it's freak out worthy. But the more you know yourself, the more you know your worth, the more you're taking care of your mind and your body and your spirit, whatever crazy is existing externally, it's not to say that you won't see it or feel it, but you won't feel it the same way as the person who's not tuning in. You're going to feel it different. And that difference could mean just so much for it to give you, so you don't have anxiety, so you don't have stress that's causing inflammation in your body, so you're not eating to be numb, so you're not taking substances to numb yourself out because you can't take anymore because the anxiety is so high. So everything is pushing us to get more in touch with the truth of who we are so that we can have some level of peace. So that was my long speech. That was my sermon on Sunday. So let's finish up. So I just talked about when the North Node is sitting up in the 8th house. Okay. And again, with that North Node being in the 8th house and the South Node being in the 2nd house, the challenge is that you're going to be probably a bit more connected to the material and to the more straightforward, maybe considered a little bit superficial, but you're being asked to let that go. And you're being asked to really embrace the different challenges, or not even challenges, but the different changes that are happening in your life, as well as really to explore more the depths of your psyche. Okay. All right. So as a quick review, North Node in the 2nd house, your focus is you're really trying to get in touch with your personal values and financial stability and self-worth. And you're trying to move away from that dependence on others' resources, as well as that tendency to get involved in a lot of emotional entanglements. It's trying to get you to not be so much in that area. And you're really being pushed to grow in being sufficient for yourself, having your things, having your own house, having your own things, your own money, your own sense of self, your own worth. Whereas the North Node in the 8th house and the South Node in the 2nd house is just the opposite. And the soul is really wanting you to focus on having more transformative experiences and depend more actually on shared resources, inheritances, collaborations. Not just always kind of doing it just within how you see it with your monies, but being willing to share the resources in community or what have you. And it's really pushing you to grow and embrace your deeper sense of self and your deeper sense of whatever your psyche is, and be willing to go through different transformative experiences. Okay. And so lastly, what I will say with this, and I will let you enjoy your Sunday, is whatever sign you have there is kind of going to color how you go about doing those things, how you go about deepening that psyche, how you go about doing the shared resources, how you go about going through the values and so forth. So if you have, for instance, like a Virgo Pisces situation. So let's say if Virgo is in your 2nd house, and if Virgo is in your 2nd house, that means you would be like a Leo rising. Um, if Virgo is in your second house, then your North Node is there, you're working towards really trying to be more resourceful, organized, disciplined, a little bit more practical, tangible, more grounded, because Virgo is that earth energy, just like Taurus, that naturally rules it is earth energy as well. So instead of you're going to have the Taurus resources, but you're the style in which the soul is wanting you to move toward getting that North Node is with a more Virgo energy. But you probably naturally live a little bit more in the Pisces energy when it comes to things, which is more emotional, more water, more fluid, more maybe um, esoteric, very much probably a little bit more into the emotions of it all. And it's asking you to get a little bit more practical, a little bit more on the ground with, hey, 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 come on, let's be a little bit more rooted. So pay attention to the sign. If you were thinking, if you're new here and you were thinking, oh, I just thought I was a Gemini and that's all I needed to know. Nope. You have every sign in you. And this is why it's super important to learn about all the signs, which I have a series, of course. I have videos that go through every single sign and explain what those signs mean. And you want to know that because we all have every single sign in us. So I explained last week the first and the seventh house is what we talked about last week. That's my personal placements. My North Node is in the seventh house, and my South Node is in the first house. And my North Node is in Capricorn, and my my South Node is in Cancer. So for me, the way in which my soul is wanting me to go about getting that North Node stuff in that seventh house is with a Capricornian energy, a more Saturn energy, a more building, planning, executing, grounding, earth type of energy. And my South Node being in Cancer, it's saying, girl, let go of this emotional neediness, please. Yes. So I'm working on it. I'm constantly working on it because I feel very connected to my Capricorn energy because I'm a Capricorn moon. So that actually helps a lot because my moon, and this is what I talked about, the aspects, my moon, I don't know if it's a direct conjunction or like a weaker conjunction, but it's very close to my North Node. And so for me, emotionally, because I connect heavily with the Capricorn energy, my ability to really see that North Node and want to be with it is more readily in my space because they're next to each other. They're not opposing each other. They're working off each other. So yeah. And then my partner who I'm with, he is a Capricorn sun. And so when we put our charts together, his sun is also lighting and helping me out with that North Node. Okay. So it's really fascinating. Fascinating. So again, if you'd like to do a reading, please check out, go to linktr.ee/Kenya MJ Music, Linktree, without it all being one word. Linktree, linktr.ee/Kenya MJ Music. You can also go to my website, which is findingyourvoiceafter40.com. Sometimes it's a little bit harder figuring out how to get to there's a menu, and from the menu, you can see astrology. If you want to book something or you want to book a free discovery call, you can do that as well. Or you can just simply email me, and that's in the description here on the video. So we will be back next week. And next week, we're going to be talking about the third and the ninth houses. And so if you have your North or South nodes in either of those, third or the ninth, you definitely want to tune in. If you don't, you still want to tune in because somebody in your life probably does have that. And also, again, it just helps you learn more about astrology. And I just really think the more you can learn about it in general, the easier and the more fluid and the more able you're going to be able to tune into your own chart. All right. Again, welcome to those who are new here. And it's so good to see y'all who are always coming here. Keep coming. Keep telling your friends. Share, like all the things. We're super close to our 1,000. Can we get to 1,000 by the end of the summer? Can we get to 1,000 by the end of July? Can we get to 1,000 by the end of the week? I don't know. No boundaries with this. Let's go. Anyway, I thank y'all. And we'll be back next week. So have an amazing week. Enjoy your Sunday. And y'all take care. Bye.